Hello, welcome back to War is Stupid, an anti-war podcast about war. I am Orli Matlow. I am a comedian and a product of the very prominent musical theater to stand-up comedian pipeline. I was radicalized by musical theater. You may know my work from the 2010 Community Hebrew Academy of Toronto production of Annie, in which I played Miss Hannigan, that everyone is still talking about, I imagine. As like the character actress, I always played the drunk character, like Miss Hannigan, the drowsy chaperone, despite never having drank before. So in retrospect, my interpretation of Miss Hannigan looks a bit more like a cokehead than a drunk person, but I was 16. I didn't know the difference.
Next time I walk down Bathurst, I'm going to be able to finally answer, yes, I do know her.
Yes.
Because I always get accosted with, are you, you write musical theater, you live in New York. Do you by chance know, the famous Orli Matlow?
Exactly. That's funny you say that because, or first introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Daniel Maté. I am a musical theater composer lyricist who in the past few years has been more lapsed than active. Thanks, Hamas.
Yeah.
No, I can't blame Hamas for that. It did seem to me that after October 7th, I started speaking up on Instagram as an anti-Zionist Jew, an anti-genocide Jew, a pro-humanity Jew, and got a lot of positive response for that, which led to a lot of speaking and whatnot, which led to me co-hosting the podcast Bad Hasbara with Matt Lieb, which Orli, you've been a guest on. But it wouldn't be honest to blame that because even before that, I was, I go through my ebbs and flows of confidence and rigor with my musical theater practice. So only recently have I started getting back into it. But I am very much, that's at the heart of my passions and who I am. So I'm a musical theater composer lyricist. I've won some awards for my writing. Haven't yet had any sort of commercial breakthrough, but I love it. And one of the most fun things about having you on our show was getting to nerd out about that with you while Matt just sat there referencing Hamilton.
Exactly. I want to flex both my musical theater bona fides, and because I live in New York, so I record the podcast from my room. If people had noticed anything in the background, I want to do a little show and tell just to explain where I'm coming from. Much like your mise en scène is excellent, beautiful record collection in the background. But this is a...
What did you just call it? Mise en scène?
Mise en scène, like set decorating, vibes.
Mise en scène.
Yes.
Scène at the end. The end is, come on, Canadian.
I know.
It's like when Americans say coup de grace.
Oh, yeah.
Coup de grâce.
I'm from Ontario, so I
know.
Have the Anglo exceptionalism.
I'm going to have to get all separatist on your ass.
Yes, you are representing.
Maudit anglais.
But this here is a Stephen Sondheim action figure.
Oh, look at him!
Isn't this adorable? I kept it in its packaging to keep it safe, keep it sacred.
That's truly adorable.
This is a Stephen Sondheim coloring book, which
wow,
they have everything. No, truly, no one is alone, and you can. In the fandom, here's Greenfinch and Linnet Bird, Assassins, which apropos of musical theater and war. And this is a framed photo of...
Assassins is not available on vinyl.
It should be. Yeah, especially, my hot take is the new cast recording, the off-Broadway cast recording with Ethan Slater as the balladeer is actually pretty good. You can
Maybe that one is available or was. I haven't been able to find either of them, but maybe you're right. The new one, which I didn't see that production.
It was good. It was
In fact,
very.
I've never seen a production. I don't think.
It was very heavy-handed. They literally had footage of January 6th at the end, like just in case everybody's got the right to be happy was a bit too subtle.
Yeah.
John Doyle put January 6th up there. That's like, if you missed the last show I saw pre-COVID shutdown was the Ivo Van Hove West Side Story, which was controversial because it's like a musical directed by a guy who doesn't like musicals. And so I'm like, you got to trust the audience a little bit more to listen to G. Officer Krupke. You didn't have to put Black Lives Matter footage up there.
Oh, for fuck's sake. The only thing I've ever seen by that guy was his adaptation of Paddy Chayefsky's Network, or Sidney Lumet's film Network. And apparently he doesn't like films either.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like good writing because Bryan Cranston played Howard Beale. And it was so heavy-handed. And so it just missed the buoyancy and absurdity of the original, and yeah. So I'm.
Would you say you're
from the little I know?
Would you say you're mad as hell and you're not going to take it anymore?
Exactly. Exactly. I went home and I shouted that out my window until my neighbors joined in.
This is a framed photo of Stephen Sondheim and Barbra Streisand, which is usually on my dresser. And my cousin was staying with me, and she's like, "Is that a framed photo of Barbra Streisand?" And I said, "Yes, these are my parents."
Didn't he write her like customized lyrics for "I'm Still Here"?
Oh,
didn't she record a version of it with some extra verses that he added specific to her career?
Yes, and she reached out to him and was like, "Hey, I want to do Send in the Clowns at the concert. At my concerts, can you rewrite it so it like makes sense out of context?" That's using her powers for good. And then,
aren't I rich?
Yeah. I got a mall in my basement with dresses from my career. And then these are my records, which come courtesy of my grandma, Aleva Shalom. Thank you, Grandma Esther, a woman of impeccable taste. My sisters and I had a draft. We waited a few years after she passed away. It wasn't like we immediately swarmed on the record collection, but we went through the boxes of records in the basement, and it was my younger sister, who's the best dancer, got West Side Story because we figured that was only fair. My older sister, who's also a musical theater composer, lyricist, got the Rodgers and Hammerstein ones, South Pacific and Sound of Music, because it's the blueprint. I scored Gypsy, the OG.
Oh, I love it.
A musical
That's the best
fable.
musical you've named so far. Yeah.
Oh, and then wait
Stein.
for it. This is my prized possession. This is, yes, we talk about getting feedback and criticized for our anti-genocide Judaism, yet I also am the proud owner of Fiddler on the Roof, a new musical, which is my absolute favorite thing to see.
I have both of those records. They are precious. They are wonderful.
Did you find them out in the world, or did someone have to die?
I think my parents had Fiddler on the Roof, and I found Gypsy. It wasn't hard to find.
I love that it's a new musical because it's hilarious to consider.
Everything starts as a new musical.
And I think about this one a lot. As I was looking through musical theater and war, I decided that pogroms count. So
of course they do.
So yes, so Fiddler on the Roof counts as a musical that deals with war. And
when you talked about your grandmother of blessed memory, I was imagining her singing, "What is this about my granddaughter hosting a podcast?"
You should be out looking for a husband.
Or employment.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, music by Jerry Bach, lyrics by Orli Matlow and Daniel Maté. But
Yeah.
I think about
Take
Fiddler.
that, Sheldon.
Yes. I think about Fiddler on the Roof a lot for obvious reasons and also not so obvious reasons. Just to bring things down right off the bat, like it's impossible for me not to think of Anatevka when I see the footage of people in Gaza with their wheelbarrows, with all of their possessions in a backpack, kids being dragged by car seats on ropes, and I just keep thinking of the dialogue where Mordechai goes like, our forefathers had been forced out of many, many places at a moment's notice, which is what's going on now. But then Tevye comes in with the punchline, maybe that's why we always wear our hats, which is it both your professional and religious opinion that Fiddler on the Roof is a masterpiece?
Yes, it is. I've seen it in Yiddish, the Joel Grey production.
Yes, that was so good.
I saw the Danny Burstein production, which was fantastic. No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Even that uber Zionist Topol couldn't ruin it. He was lovely as Tevye, you know, and yeah, I mean, and I guess the Anatevka Jews had their own version of Palestinian concept of sumud, steadfastness, which is what the song tradition is all about. That we hold fast to certain things. Of course, you know, the tone is different. They're more a little bit of this, a little bit of that. What's a house really? You know, that kind of mournful. What are you going to do-ness is. It's got more of a Jewish flavor to it than the sort of impassioned connection to land and home and religion that Palestinians seem to have as a way of staying true to their dream. And unlike the Jews of Anatevka, I mean, I guess one mentions that they might be going to Palestine, but most of them are not.
Yes, Yenta, the matchmaker.
They're going to America. Yeah, Yenta. I think she's very Zionist coded, actually. She wheels and deals.
Yeah.
But the Palestinians have somewhere they're longing to return to altogether. There's more of a collective dream there, as opposed to the Jews of the Pale of Settlement, where it's like, well, where are we going next? We're going to keep being dispersed, keep being scattered. The exile, the Nakba for them is, you know, not within living memory, not even, you know, it's millennia.
Yeah, and Tevye, I think, ends up in Chicago. He goes to the cousin in Chicago. So
there's got to be a sequel.
Yes.
We've got to have Tevye in Chicago as oh my God.
Or a crossover. I don't know if we do the time, if he could have plausibly been alive long enough to see the events of the musical Chicago transpire.
Very good.
In the 1920s, a crossover episode.
Or be the milk supplier to Carmi Berzado's restaurant in the Bear.
Oh my gosh, that would be beautiful.
Thank you, chef. Thank you, chef. Yes, chef.
But, ooh.
Yo, where the fuck is Tevye?
While we're talking about musicals in which people run away from their homes because of political forces, I want to give a shout out to The Sound of Music. So that is the movie just celebrated its 60th anniversary, and I had the honor of going to the sing-along at the Hollywood Bowl. Had you ever been?
No.
Oh my gosh, it was incredible. It'll almost make you think Los Angeles has culture. Like it almost made me like Los Angeles for like 20 minutes. It's a long movie for 2.5 hours. But we got this swag bag, which included heckles as part of the sing-along. So, which includes boo when you see Rolf on screen. So it was very Purim spiel. Rolf was like the Haman. And it was funny that whenever there were Nazis or swastikas, people had laser pointers and they would just put them all over the Nazis. Fan Maria when she blushes after dancing with the captain. So, of course, they gave us
that's very
this
cute.
fan to fan ourselves. Wave when the guests say goodbye to the Von Trapp children at the end of the song So Long Farewell.
Of course.
And shh when the Von Trapps are sneaking out before the festival.
I love that. Apropos of very little but related, have you seen the new Spinal Tap movie?
I haven't. How is it?
It's actually, I found it extremely funny. I loved it. And there's a throwaway gag in the reel during the end credits. When, and this is a spoiler alert for anyone who's going to see it, but you know, it's sort of the, well, what now after the reunion concert. And one of them's talking about writing his memoir. And he's like, yeah, it's there's been a lot of very good musician memoirs. I'm particularly inspired by I Am Springsteen Going on Spreventine, which I thought was one of the finest throwaway gags I've ever heard.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I watched the new Naked Gun on Paramount Plus.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't see it in theaters.
Yeah.
But yeah, make comedies
Wasn't
with jokes again.
Pamela Anderson's nightclub routine one of the best musical sequences you've seen in the movies in a long time?
Yeah, she's wonderful. I love how we had mentioned Chicago, but in her documentary, like going into Chicago is like the bookends for her, like coming into her own. She's talented. I'm mad I missed it live. That would have been fun.
Proud that she's from British Columbia.
Yes. And yeah, had you ever been to a BC Lions game? That could have been how you got discovered.
I have been to a BC Lions game, yeah. When I was a kid, I used to go quite a bit.
That's so fun. I've never... Yeah,
I did catch a football. I caught a football once at a BC Lions game.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in theater if you were also a jock?
I was not a jock. I wasn't playing. I was in the stands. But I liked our local sports teams. I was a Canucks fan. But it's a fair question. I was not a theater kid per se. I was musically gifted, and I liked acting. And I think if I hadn't had a sort of if you can't beat 'em, join 'em moment in like grade 6, and you know, we're both Canadians, it's a safe space here, so I can say grade 6 instead of 6th grade.
Yeah. Oh.
When I decided that in order to survive the intermittent, unpredictable bullying that my best friends would lay on me, I needed to drop the sincerity and the sweetness and the vulnerability that was my Achilles heel and become sardonic and I was very violence phobic as a kid. I would not go to birthday parties if I would check the rating in the newspaper to see if there was violence. And if there was violence, I'd be on the fence. And if there was gory violence, I wouldn't go. And my friends were super into violent things, G.I. Joe and whatever. Plus, I was anti-imperialist coming from the Maté family, going to the peace marches. So I would refuse to see movies like Contra or whatever like that because I was woke. It was a drag for my social life. And, you know, it couldn't fit in. So I decided, well, if you can't beat him, join him. And I became like kind of a more callous or more hard attitude, you know, and would join in making substitute teachers cry. And I got into heavy metal around that time and hip hop and more aggressive forms of music. And previously I had loved Little Shop of Horrors, but I became obsessed with Freddy Krueger and dressed up as him for Halloween. So the point is, into my teenage years, I wasn't doing, you know, gay stuff like musical theater. I got into acting and late in high school because it was kind of sexy to act. Like that was a cool place. And I think we did Nicholas Nickleby. That was maybe the fruitiest, pardon the expression, but the most effete production I was a part of.
That's ambitious. That's like more sophisticated than Annie. Good for
no,
your
sure
school.
it is. And I played, but I got to be sadistic in it. I played Wackford Squeers, the cruel, sadistic headmaster who beats Nicholas within an inch of his life. It was really fun. Then in university, I didn't have I was hedging on my musical and theatrical gifts, and I didn't study music or theater in undergrad at McGill. I did a psychology degree, but to keep myself sane and nourished, I did a lot of acting on the side. And for one show called Sex Tips for Modern Girls, I set some lyrics that were in the script. It was a show from the 70s to music, and that was the first time I really... Actually, that's not true. Going to Zionist summer camp, I co-wrote Little Shop of Hummus.
Oh.
Which is itself a ridiculous... I'll tell you about that later if you want.
No, please.
The plot of that was... You want to hear it now?
Yeah.
Okay, we're kind of going all over the place here, but I'm taking you on a quick wild ride through my musical theater education, which culminated in me going to the same NYU program that your sister did when I was 30. But anyway, in my teens, I grew up going to a Habonim Dror summer camp, which is a labor Zionist, kibbutz-oriented Zionist summer camp on Gabriola Island, BC, where I was Seth Rogen's camp counselor. And as a teenager in the city, in between summers, we would put on a fundraising musical every year, and we'd usually do a parody of an existing musical. And so the year that I was a counselor and it was my turn to co-write and to direct and music direct, we did Little Shop of Hummus. Now, you can even tell in the way I pronounced hummus that there was a certain spin on the concept. But what's even more hilarious and absurd was the premise of the show, which is that Shlomo, instead of Seymour, suddenly Shlomo, is a young Habonimnik kid who is, into his Jewish identity via being a member of the same youth group as us, and Israeli culture by extension, and bagels. So just sort of a typical mainstream liberal North American Jewish kid. And he's working at this falafel stand at the mall owned by, I forget what the guy's name is, probably some Israeli guy. And Aviva, instead of Audrey, is the girl he has his eye on, and it's a failing falafel stand. And then one day, he meets a guy named Frank Furter. Now, I didn't realize that actually comes from Rocky Horror Picture Show, but never mind. Turns out who's a mean, lean hot dog from outer space, who offers him, it's not a plant, but he offers him a secret ingredient to put in his falafel, which will make the customers flock to it. And of course, it turns out it's unkosher meat. But all he wants in return, instead of blood, is like Judaica artifacts.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's the lifeblood that Shlomo is giving, right? And he gets less and less Jewish and more assimilated. And yet the falafel stand, which the falafels are now stuffed with like pork sausage, is selling like hotcakes. And lyrics were like, little shop of hummus, falafel, stop at the little shop of hummus. You better make lots of falafel. Something's coming, something really awful. It was a lot of fun. But of course, how completely absurd and blinkered and perfectly capturing like North American liberal Zionism to think that you could make a movie about losing your culture when the essence of your culture, and we're Ashkenazi Jews, by the way. We're like, there was maybe one Mizrahi Jew per 100 in our youth group. So none of us had any connection to hummus or falafel by like our lineage. It was all through settler colonialism. And the notion that reclaiming your identity is to hold on to tightly to falafel and not let the goyim take falafel away from us. It was just, not even giving a thought to who we took that from or at what cost. And this is early 90s, First Intifada is still raging. I mean, totally ridiculous. But that was a lot of fun.
I see your Little Shop of Hummus and raise you my Zionist summer camp because I went to Camp Ramah and meant the shows were in Hebrew.
Oh, nice.
So I do remember Chanutiya Shel Pachad Shirina Bayachad, which actually scans. I'm impressed with that. In addition to traumatizing kids, Camp Ramah commits so many crimes against musical theater, especially when it comes to the translations. Like the one that my family still makes fun of. My sister was at Ramah, and the play was just Glee. So it was just like Hebrew translations of pop songs at the time. And it was the era of Lady Gaga's Bad Romance. And instead of I want your love, 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 they translated it to Rotse Arnav, Nav, 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 which doesn't mean I want your love. It means I want a rabbit. So that's the wholesome
Why didn't they
fun.
at least say? Why didn't they say? Let's say no, or lulav, love, love, love.
Oh, Happy Sukkot. Yeah, that would have
Happy Sukkot.
That would have made way more sense. But perfect seg, you set me up perfectly when you talked about musical theater being seen as a feat. That was not the case in the 1940s. So my thesis of the episode today, War is Good for Musical Theater, is that not only does war feature prominently in musical theater, but musical theater also featured prominently in war. During really? World War II, which is everyone's favorite war, episode 2, if you're not familiar with World War II, I have an episode. And there's some movies. But Broadway was literally part of the war effort, which would give Pete Hegseth an aneurysm. There was something in the theater district in Times Square called the Stage Door Canteen, founded by the American Theater Wing, which was where entertainers would volunteer to entertain American and Allied servicemen to boost morale. And Irving Berlin of God Bless America fame had a musical on Broadway called This Is the Army, a Broadway musical literally to raise money for the Army that was quickly adapted into a film to raise money for the Army. And it was billed as a wartime musical comedy film, which is a real sequence of words used unironically. So Irving Berlin said, songs make history and history makes songs. You needed a French Revolution to make I'm anxious about my pronunciation. A Marseillaise. How do you pronounce the national anthem of French?
Marseillaise.
La Marseillaise. And you needed the bombardment of Fort Henry to give voice to the Star-Spangled Banner. So he was like, history make songs, songs make history. This is my chance. So he quite literally called up.
Yeah, and you needed slavery to give us eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Oh shit! Right? Really?
It wasn't catch a tiger by the toe.
Oh no!
Originally.
Okay. I'm glad that I haven't been in a position to have to spontaneously.
You haven't had to make any choices between two things before.
Exactly.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah, you can't make choices between two things anymore because of woke.
That's right. Look what the libs took from us.
Yeah. Oh, that's brutal. But this Irving Berlin, this is the Army. Even though apropos of slavery, even though America was fighting an evil empire, the Nazis that insisted it was the master race, the armed forces were segregated except for the musical theater platoon. So at Berlin's insistence, This Is the Army included black performers, making it the only integrated company in uniform. And it was composed...
It's so funny that his name was Berlin. Like, imagine if, like, the chief Zionist propagandist Hollywood screenwriter was named like Isaac Hamas or something like that, or Isaac Rafa. You know, it's
funny, especially because like they're celebrating Berlin during World War II. Like this is some real Canadian deep cuts. But my mom, I should say, is from Kitchener, Ontario, which was initially called New Berlin, full of German immigrants, but because of the vibes during World War I, they changed it to Kitchener, who was the general of the British Army who like fought Berlin. They're like, we're good, we're allies, we'll change the name of the town. So yeah, Irving really should have stuck with Byron. It would have been less controversial.
Yeah.
And so, all right, this is a quote from the biographer. So he integrated the armed forces for his musical, but unfortunately that progressivism did not reflect into his theatrical sensibilities. So this is from Lawrence Bergreen, Berlin's biographer. Eventually, black and white members of This Is the Army lived and worked together. His advanced ideas on how his men should live notwithstanding, Berlin clung to outdated conventions concerning the material he wanted black actors to perform. Initially, he expected the first half hour of This Is the Army to recreate a minstrel show, which was the way he had kicked off Yip Yip Yap Hank, which was his World War I musical. He wanted 110 men sitting on bleachers and everyone in blackface. Ezra Stone, the director, was indignant. "Mr. Berlin," he said, "I know the heritage of the minstrel show. Those days are gone. People don't want to do that anymore." So instead, his compromise, Berlin wrote a song.
110 blackface. Da, 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 da.
Instead, he had the black performers perform a song called "A Real Harlem Beat."
Oh.
Which, at least there was...
Early old school hip hop.
Yeah. But it was such a hit on Broadway that Eleanor Roosevelt saw it 3 times and encouraged them to do a national tour so her husband could see it. He was a bit busy to travel to New York. And then this is the craziest part. Naturally, if something's a success in the theater, you got to adapt it into a movie. Or now it's the other way around. If something's a successful movie, you got to make it a musical. But the movie, This Is the Army, starred arguably the actor who was responsible for the most deaths of any actor in Hollywood history. Could you guess?
What year are we talking?
1943.
Not Orson Welles. He scared a lot of people into thinking they were going to die, but he didn't kill anyone.
In his defense, this actor it was his career after acting.
Oh, John Wayne?
No, close though. Lieutenant Ronald Reagan.
Ah. Why wasn't that my first guess?
He's not. It's so funny that again the Gipper, the god of Republicans and therefore American masculinity, did musical theater. It was
Wow, and now we have a president who's just a full out theater queen.
Literally.
Yeah.
The Kennedy
Pretty
Center
limited,
stuff is wild.
Yeah, he loves cats. Loves Phantom.
My opinions on the president, those are things I cannot forgive. Loving Andrew Lloyd Webber, especially as an American president, to support the man who ruins the Broadway musical by turning it into these spectacles you don't even have to speak English for, is unforgivable. That Trump figure, I don't think he's good news.
Yeah, I mean, if he was into Jesus Christ Superstar, I could get with that. That's a pretty cool show.
And Evita, but I don't trust that he'd like it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Because the score is so catchy, people don't know that, no, Evita's a villain. Juan Perón is the dude who got the Nazis into Argentina. But that didn't make the musical. But it's interesting, during the production of Irving Berlin's This Is the Army, they moved 150 troops to LA, and one of whom was even boarded up at Cole Porter's Bel Air mansion, which sounds like that should be a musical in itself.
I wonder if he stayed in the dungeon.
Yeah, you're thinking of Stephen Sondheim. The rumor is that...
I know, but I have to think that Cole Porter would have preceded Sondheim in that.
It comes from a long musical legacy.
I mean, he gets no thrill from cocaine.
Yeah.
But he likes getting a kick out of his house guest.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, Taylor Swift's new album. She's basically just doing "I get no kick from cocaine," trying to be not like the other girls.
She gets no kick from anything. She's a robot.
That's your songwriter diagnosis.
I haven't given her enough time of day. There's some skill to what she does. She's got some craft. It's never struck me as particularly human, but it's a nice simulation.
Yeah, but it seems like it's harder and harder to maintain every time. But
yeah.
While we're on the subject of pop music, so I'm a good Jew in that I have the Fiddler on the Roof cast album, and I'm anxious about getting sued. And my vision for this episode initially was watching some clips from Cringy to Good and reacting to them, a la Hassan Piker. But I was worried about getting sued. So that's when...
Also, today would not be a good day to emulate Hassan Piker because he's getting dragged for shocking his dog with a shock collar, so it stayed in frame.
Oh my!
That's what people are accusing him of.
Oh no!
I don't know if it's true.
You can't be America's sweetheart. I guess it works for Kristi Noem. You could be America's sweetheart and still do animal cruelty.
Well, she can be half of America's sweetheart, and he could be the other half of America's sweetheart.
Exactly. The United States, not.
It's a broken heart.
But the beauty of hosting what is ostensibly a history podcast is there's something called the public domain. Anything,
hell yeah, fair use, baby.
Fair use, anything before 1930. So Irving Berlin's World War I musical, Yip Yip Yap Hank, which he was drafted into World War I, wrote the musical while in basic training, and then it literally transferred from the military to Broadway.
Do you think he was trolling Yip Harburg?
Oh, shit, maybe. Did they have beef? Kosher beef?
I don't know. I mean, Harburg was not a militarist by any means. He was at least a socialist, if not a communist.
And Berlin was very much a militarist, so much so that there was drama when he wanted a new finale for the movie version of This Is the Army. And the lyrics he wrote were, dressed up to kill, dressed up to kill, dressed up for victory. Oh, we don't like killing, but we won't stop killing until the world is free. And it was Jack Warner of Warner Brothers that was like, hey, man, like...
Oh, hold on. Are you telling me that he rhymed victory with free? So you would have had to say victory. Now, at the end of every Bad Hasbara episode, and we're going on 150 episodes.
Oh, shit, congrats.
We do this thing where, thank you. We do this thing where Matt says, okay, everybody, and until next time, from the river to the sea. And then I impromptu come up with some kind of pseudo-rhyming line that relates to what we've been talking about. A replacement for Palestine will be free. And of course, by necessity, having to come up with a new one every week, I will I'll sort of, I'll molest the scansion. Scansion is one of the few things I do allow myself to molest.
Look at Stephen Sondheim's face and tell him.
I will. He wasn't writing in the podcast era. He couldn't have come up with you'd go through Rhyme Zone within about 60 episodes and you'd be out of good scanning. So victory, it's not victory. But you know what? I've got Tupac right behind me and he did that all the time. So in certain contexts, my adversaries in the penitentiary.
Irving Berlin, the Tupac of...
Irving Berlin and Tupac,
But it's so funny, the idea that, like, Warner Brothers was like, hey, man, you're being too bloodthirsty. So they...
Tone it down, Irving.
So they changed it from dressed up to kill to dressed up to win, but they still danced with bayonets, lest you not think it's bloodthirsty.
But hold on, dressed up to win, dressed up to win. We don't like winning, but we'll keep winning.
Oh, I guess we don't like killing, but we won't stop killing until the world is... But then that doesn't even work.
Exactly.
That's
the thing about rewriting. I swear to God, one of the most infuriating things about being a musical theater writer, I mean, it's true. Musicals aren't written, they're rewritten. And anytime you change one word, even a preposition, something else falls out. Like, it's so tightly constructed and there's so many things that are having to happen at the same time, both musically, lyrically, tonally, character-wise, and in terms of the plot. It's very hard to change things without affecting something else in the song. So I don't know. I wonder how you got around that.
We're going to go further back in time to his World War I musical, I'm excited for your take on this. So this is despite being bloodthirsty, he did write some satirical songs about the day-to-day minutia of army life. So I'm going to share my screen. I think that way you'll be able to hear it. Let me know if you're able to hear it.
Sure.
I'm still new with the technology. This is only, I believe, episode 11. So I'm like 139 behind Bad Hasbara. But here we go. Thank you. This is Oh, I Hate to Get Up in the Morning by Irving Berlin from 1918. So I can legally play this. Thank you. Fair use.
The other day I chanced to meet a soldier friend of mine. He'd been in camp for several weeks and he was looking fine. His muscles had developed and his cheeks were rosy red. I asked him how he likes the life and this is what he said. Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed. For the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You've got to get up, you've got to get up, you've got to get up this morning. Someday I'm going to murder the bugler. Someday they're going to find him dead. I'll amputate his reveille and step upon it heavily and spend
Very good.
the rest of my life in bed.
Very good.
Yeah, right?
Reveille, heavily.
And the timelessness.
Of course, in French it's réveil, but that is fair use in a different sense in English. Reveille is how it's said.
Yeah, I find that charming.
Yep. Yeah, especially the interpolation of the bugle call itself into the melody. It's very very well done. That's what you'd expect from a pro like that.
Yes. And are you familiar with If He Can Fight Like He Can Love, Good Night, Germany?
No.
This one wasn't Irving Berlin, but it's a militaristic love song.
If he can fuck Germany in the ass the way... never mind.
Yeah. No, honestly, this is the 1918 equivalent. So I'm going to shout out to the UC Santa Barbara for their cataloging World War I songs.
Little Mary Bow said, I've got to go. I must fight for Uncle Sam. Standing in the crowd, Mary called aloud, fare thee well, my loving man. All the girls said, ain't he nice and tall? Mary answered, yes, and that's not all. If he can fight like he can love, oh, what a soldier boy he'll be. If he's just half as good in a trend.
My internet must have conked out. So I think
Okay.
If he could fight like he could love, then So Long Germany is just too spicy for the internet. Better left in 1918.
They cut us off because it was just too hot and heavy. I kind of tuned out after the near rhyme between Uncle Sam and What a Man or something like that. That's a slant rhyme. Come on, man.
Yeah. And to go more contemporary from 1918, I used this podcast as an opportunity to watch Miss Saigon. And I made it 70% of the way through before I started looking for think pieces to give me permission to not finish it. Because it sucks. Speaking of Andrew Lloyd...
I've never seen it, but I do have to say I have an undying fondness for Richard Maltby because he was the one who phoned me in the middle of a rehearsal I was at for a reading of a show of mine to let me know that I'd won the Ed Kleban Prize.
Oh, incredible.
Which is $100,000, so I love the man. I hear Miss Saigon is garbage.
Absolute trash.
A bit of a helicopter crash.
Yeah. It's dangerous. Like, so I got there's a quote from Pulitzer Prize winner Viet Thanh Nguyen. He says, "I thought it was terrible, fulfilling every Orientalist trope that I had studied and was opposed to. The cross-racial casting aside, it fits perfectly into the way that Americans and Europeans have imagined the Vietnam War as a racial and sexual fantasy that negates the war's political significance and Vietnamese subjectivity and agency."
Sure.
Which, speaking of war,
like every Hollywood movie about Vietnam, except maybe, I don't know, what was that was it The Thin Red Line or something like that? I don't know. I grew up in the age of serious Hollywood prestige movies reflecting on, I guess, Full Metal Jacket, but even that didn't really focus on the Vietnamese experience. It just focused on the depravity and amorality of the American conduct there and the internal culture there. But, Platoon and all that kind of stuff.
Have you considered that the real problem wasn't the civilians and the villages burning? It was that it made the soldiers sad.
It made them sad. It made them want heroin.
Yeah.
It was the Vietnamese were a real bad influence on our good American boys. It made them racist. They caught mental illness. They caught, bloodborne or mosquito-borne mental illnesses like, PTSD and suicidality in that jungle.
Absolutely.
They did not. The hospitality was terrible. It's like sort of when people complain about, Hamas starving the Israeli hostages, or even like lamenting like, I can't believe they blew up our beautiful baby boys and girls, and they actually blew up a tank. In Gaza City that was, firing on a hungry crowd. And I think, where is that famous Arab hospitality now,
Yeah, exactly. Maybe your teenage sons should, be getting blasted at the frat house. Am I right?
Seriously. They're going to get blasted somewhere.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about more modern musicals like Hamilton, Van's Visit, and Slam Frank that I saw last night.
Excellent. Okay, perfect seg. So it doesn't get more modern than a musical you quite literally saw last night.
That's correct.
So tell us about it.
Well, I don't want to say too much because part of if you're going to enjoy a musical like Slam Frank the musical, you got to let yourself be shocked, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to shock you. And I don't know how I feel about the show. I don't know the show doesn't have a lot of heart. It's apparently, I don't know much about the history of it. I was drawn to the musical because of their social media game. They have a very funny Instagram account, and it was fascinating to me to watch kind of skewering of woke orthodoxy happening from within the theater community, because I'd gotten so used to the only anti-woke forces in the world, or woke questioning forces, or pointing out the excesses of, progressive authoritarianism, for lack of a better word, or hypersensitivity, and kind of rigidity in the name of protecting people's feelings, which are things that I've observed. Like, I'm a Gen Xer, so or a late Gen Xer, sort of somewhere in between Gen X and millennial, but I could feel that there was a cultural shift happening in the mid-2010s, and I could tell that it was an overcorrection in some ways for things that genuinely needed correction, right? Homophobia, transphobia, racism, structural things like that, right? But especially around COVID, that a lot of factionalism and the internet just heightens kind of absolutist tendencies and dogma and whatnot. So I was in some ways primed for some kind of backlash to it, but it tended to come in the form of either, comedians like Dave Chappelle, who would go out of his way to be extra insensitive and then extra butthurt, pardon the probably homophobic word, but about the fact that he was getting backlash, and then just lazy with his comedy. I thought he was one of the best comics in the world, but
he wouldn't take Comedy Central's money, but he'd take the Saudi royal family's money.
Well, that's that's the punchline right now from very recently. But the more he did, I mean, I thought some of his material about gender and trans stuff had some potential, but the more it became about the backlash to his stuff, it just became lazy and nasty and cruel, or just boring and self-absorbed, right? And then the anti-woke backlash is coming from right-wingers, like genuine right-wingers. I mean, Dave Chappelle's great on Palestine, but fucking Greg Gutfeld and Fox News and Ben Shapiro and all this shit. And these people don't have a funny bone in their body because they don't understand irony, and they have no compassion and no heart. And the best comedy comes from a sense of irony mixed with heart. That's why Sheldon Harnick is so great. Mm-hmm. There's an edge, but it's warmed by a human heart that cares about people.
Who was it? Was it Jerry Adler, or who wrote Damn Yankees, that said you gotta have heart?
Makes sense.
It's about baseball and comedy.
And William Finn, my late great professor, said you got to have heart and music to make a song. Music part seems uncontroversial to me, that you would need that to make a song. But anyway, his lyrics didn't always make perfect sense to me. But he sure had spirit. What am I saying? This is a musical. I don't know who these guys are, really. Andrew Fox and Josh something, who wrote the book. I don't know anything about them, but I get the sense that they're on the internet a lot, and that the internet tickles their funny bone and pisses them off, and they have a lot of reactions to the internet, and they react to the internet in some ways like internet people. And so the whole musical is kind of a troll. In fact, originally it didn't even start out as a musical. They made this joke because I think there was some incident where someone was talking about how Anne Frank never checked her white privilege, just something like that, wokery taken to its absurd extremes.
And then they wrote 90 minutes about that. Yeah, for those unfamiliar, Slam Frank is a hip hop musical about Anne Frank. And
well, it's hip hop inflected. There's some rapping in it, but it's like they're parodying Hamilton as well. So they're parodying the kind of not girl boss thing of Hamilton, but in this case it's girl boss. But scrappy, hungry immigrant story set to like hip modern music done in kind of a saccharine, easily digestible way. And also recontextualizing a past figure as intersectional and whatnot. Now, Alexander Hamilton was actually a white slave-owning elitist hater of the common people and a cutthroat capitalist, and someone who believed that the people who owned the country ought to govern it. So casting him as a scrappy immigrant who's just like his country and whatever, he was just like his country, but in sort of a different way. This musical takes that to the total opposite extreme, where they're like imagining Anne Frank as in fact a Latinx immigrant girl from Munich who lived in the barrio of Munich with her abuela, and now she's in Amsterdam and having to assimilate, and now they're in the attic with her with their neighbors, the Van Dams. The son is secretly non-binary. The whole thing is completely absurd, and they're clearly trying to do, in some ways, what Book of Mormon did, what the producers did: take a sacred cow and use the format of musical theater, which they seem to have some affection for, although not nearly as much, I would say, affection or craft as the South Park guys do, as evidenced in Book of Mormon, which I have my own problems with, but I still think it's a absolutely impeccable piece of musical theater. And they're trying to have fun with that, but it's so all over the place. And it's taking place during a war and a genocide, and there's actually a pretty funny running joke that they get so caught up in the identity stuff, and like they have one song called Fighting Expectations, where like they're like outside they're fighting a war, but inside this attic we're fighting expectations, so they're fighting expectations, and they're and at one point someone's like, "And like the Nazis could be here any day," and she's like, "Who?" The Nazis, remember? The Nazis, the people we're hiding from? She's like, "Oh yeah, I totally forgot that was happening." So the musical is not about Anne Frank. It's about it's skewering the times we're living in, and they have fun with that too, and a lot of meta stuff, some of which works, some of which doesn't. Now I'm sitting there. I saw it on October 7th.
Oy.
And I'm like, are these Jewish writers?
Yeah.
Are they going to go? No, they didn't. It starts with a land acknowledgement, which is sort of an easy joke. But I was like, and there's one nod to Palestine early in the show on like a newsreel kind of thing, but it's just a little wink, wink, like, oh, nothing controversial ever happened in Palestine. It's a land that had no effect on global politics. So I'm wondering if they're going to go there. And I don't want to spoil the ending for anyone who's going to see it. It's on a limited run net right now. Tickets are very expensive. It's at a comedy club called The Asylum, NYC. But the show takes a turn, let's just say, towards the end. And I have no idea actually what these guys believe or what their politics are. But them going there in the way they did was at least temporarily cathartic enough for me to have a huge release of laughter and shock and whatever. And it satisfied some part of me that wanted to hear some unsayable things said on a New York City stage and being willing to confuse a room full of people. And it did. And there were some of us who were laughing really hard. Now, I'm not sure if I got rooked, because it could be that I was laughing, that I was the butt of the joke.
Oh, interesting.
I can't tell. And I can't tell if that's by design or if it's actually a happy consequence of their lack of skill. I can't tell if it was deliberate or clumsy, but at the moment there's some productive ambiguity, I would say, about what they're actually trying to say. But upon reflection, I've been talking to a friend about it, it's very possible that like actually the dig is at least as much at people who care about Palestine sincerely online as it is at, I don't know, Jewish identity politics and Zionism. So I don't know. But all I know is it was pretty energizing to be in a room with people who are just, they have an idea and they're going for it. It might be a nasty little, mean little piece of work. I don't know where it's going to go from here. It's totally incoherent in a lot of ways, but some very, very funny lines along the way. But it's not really about war. It's about internet wars and self-righteousness and the authoritarian tendency of believing you have justice on your side, I would say. Which, okay, sort of a middle-of-the-road South Park kind of observation. But then what makes South Park is when it's on and when they're doing Book of Mormon, it's done with such incredible skill and heart on a certain level that it can take that over the finish line rather than just being like, heh, 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 heh.
Yeah, that's my favorite fact about the South Park guys is that the reason they wrote the Book of Mormon is because Sondheim said publicly that his favorite musical of 2000, whatever year South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut came out, he said that was his favorite musical of the year.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's so great.
So it's quite literally Sondheim approved.
I mean, I think Shut Your Fucking Face, Uncle Fucka is one of the funniest things I've ever seen on film.
And yeah, we're Canadians. We have every right to take that personally. But no, we can appreciate good art where we see it.
Good art is good art, buddy.
I did see a reading of Slam Frank, so I don't know how much has changed. It was like a month or two ago, and the whole time I was thinking, I'm like, this would be funnier if there weren't actually Latinos in hiding so they don't get deported. Yeah,
that actually, you're right. Not once during the whole thing did it even make me think about that.
Yeah,
and that's very telling.
The whole time it's like there are so many things now that I'm like, this would have been funnier had Kamala won. Because
yeah,
it felt like very
oh my God.
Obama's second
America
term.
is so much funnier when Democrats are in power. I mean, the politicians aren't funnier. Like Trump is much funnier than any of those fuckers. Unfortunately, because he's also a complete monster. But he's just the contradictions between his fascist venality and his catty theater queen tendencies, it's just too funny. But yeah, I much prefer skewering hypocrisy than trying to make light of total dystopia.
So who does?
Did Slam Frank have the twist I'm referring to when you saw the reading
of the song? Yeah, of the Israel song.
The Israel song when the sister finally speaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you make of that?
At first, I was hoping it would be like, oh, are we the baddies? But yeah, it would, like they left it so ambiguous that like it didn't really land.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
But it wasn't.
Well, they added. Let's put it this way: they added some costumes to the mix.
Oh no!
In this production, which heightens the intensity of it, whatever the fuck they're actually trying to say. And I think it's very possible that there's something quite reactionary about it. But again, I was saying to a friend who saw it last night and who said he was feeling gross about it this morning. Like, I think he laughed and all that. Like, it makes you laugh. It's skillful in that way. And there's some really good punchlines in some of the lyrics. Decent amount of songcraft. But he felt gross about it. I said, I kind of do too. But at the same time, that's not new for me. I felt gross after I saw Hamilton.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that. The sexy slaveholders.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, I had loved the original cast album. So just listening to it as a collection of songs and the orchestrations, and the album is produced by, Black Thought and Questlove of the Roots. So it really has that like extra backbeat to it. Seeing it in the theater where the band is more in the background and like just the sound is more shrill, and it's also people doing it on stage. I still liked it, but the second time I saw it, I liked it less. And the more that musical has sat with me, the less fond I am of it, because it just seems to me that it's venerating the thing it claims to be subverting. It's a very rah America show, and that's who loves it tells the tale. It's a show that both Dick Cheney and Hillary Clinton could love, which highlights not that it's not just pure accessibility, but how similar those two are, and how in the liberal imagination they couldn't be more different. But Hillary Clinton has shown herself to be a monstrous warmonger, and completely. And this is why Liz Cheney was, Kamala's biggest booster. So, and Dick Cheney himself made videos about touting Kamala.
And they thought that they would win.
Yeah, exactly. They believed that they would win. So that left a sort of a nasty taste in my mouth. Book of Mormon, even, which I really like as a show. But again, I made the mistake of listening to the cast album first. And just on a pure level of writing and concept alone, I could imagine it animated. Mm-hmm. But when I get into and I laughed until I cried when I first heard it. I couldn't believe how good it was. And that Joseph Smith, American Moses thing where the Africans do their own version of the Mormon folktale.
And it itself is a reference to the King and I's The Small House of Uncle Thomas.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, Uncle Tonk's Cabin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. I didn't even connect that. That's really, really cute. And again, that's a loving tribute. However, it's a different experience for me, at least, sitting in a Broadway theater, having paid however many $100s I did for that ticket, sitting among very well-fed, some very corn-fed, American tourists and Bridgerton people, and local, comfortable coastal elites like me, watching real black actors, and white actors, but, watching the working class of the performing world performing for us. And these black actors are playing, impoverished, genocided, genitally mutilated, AIDS-ravaged Africans, and one of them has to continually sing about how there are maggots in his scrotum, which is as a piece of songwriting, it's a great joke.
It's a Tony-winning lyric.
It's a Tony-winning lyric, and I don't hate it, but just the experience of taking it in the theater. There's something already kind of fascist about musical theater. Is the thing.
This is juicy. Okay.
There's a kind of emotional fascism to it because you're pushing buttons. It's like pornography. You know what an 11 o'clock number is. Now, it's not saying you can't write musicals that Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 is not like this. It has a totally different structure, different logic, different emotional world, right? Musicals can be fantastic, but there's the potential for it because what you're doing is you're manipulating emotions. And often in musical theater, you have characters singing about their emotions emotionally.
Yeah.
Now, what makes Sondheim so great is he refuses to do that. He has people singing emotionally about what they think they're feeling, but their words or the music is telling you something different. or it's coming at it from a different angle. So he's treading with care when you combine these two combustible elements, which is dialogue, story, character on the one hand, and music and song. You know, because it's a fine line between a big, rousing 11 o'clock number and the reaction that Broadway audiences give to a woman squelching her face off, and like an evangelical megachurch.
Oh, yeah.
They go there to feel those feels.
Lenny Riefenstahl.
And to have their faces melted by the rapture, you know? Lenny Riefenstahl.
Never got to direct a musical, I don't think, but that would have been interesting.
No, that might have been her calling.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting there, not having grown up in musical theater, not knowing the names of all the divas, not really giving a shit about how high someone can sing, I want theater that is musical and that is using music intelligently to heighten itself. I have often felt very alienated sitting among Broadway audiences in very liberal, cozy shows. I didn't see suffs, but the whole thing, the idea made my stomach turn. No shade to the creators, but Hillary Clinton was a producer on that. That's enough to turn me off. I saw Ragtime at City Center, the Encore's presentation, which they're now turning into a full-fledged production. And I saw that the day after Kamala lost.
Oy. What was that like?
And it was like a grief ceremony for white liberals. Meanwhile, there's a character named Coalhouse Walker, who's the black stochastic terrorist who's had enough of oppression and having his life absolutely ruined by the white establishment. And he goes and starts killing white people. And then his Jewish friend, supposed ally, coaxes him out of hiding, promising him safe passage. He gets gunned down in the street. There's like, they feel sad for about 30 seconds. And then the epilogue is the Jewish guy goes off and marries his widow and raises their child in America, and only in America, you know? And like,
those are the wheels of a dream.
Right. And I'm sitting there thinking, you white liberals are crying about how we can never go back to before. And you're thinking about Trump and Kamala and the Democrats and all this shit and how Hillary is your real president, you know, fucking war criminal Hillary. What about Hamas? Like, how do you, like, if you identify with Coalhouse Walker in this thing, then why don't you have any, why is it so unthinkable to you that people might want to break out of a concentration camp and go do some violence, go cause some damage? I'm not saying you have to like it. I'm not cheering on October 7th. I don't think you have to cheer on the events of October 7th to be an ally to the Palestinians, but I sure was invigorated by seeing that wall come down or people paragliding over it, never mind what they did afterwards. That's me. But I'm sitting here in this Broadway audience full of well-heeled people feeling in their feelings about how democracy is dead. And the show itself is showing us what happens when people are pushed to the limit. And people will not draw those conclusions because in the fascist musical theater ethos, musical theater is there to flatter the sensibilities of its audience and not challenge them and not subvert. And that's why I love musicals like A Strange Loop by my friend Michael R. Jackson. I love Sondheim. I love Dave Malloy. I love anyone who's willing to discomfort people.
Yeah, Assassins tells you, here are some literal terrorists. We're going to tell you how they got there, and you're going to empathize with them whether you like it or not.
That's right, and maybe next time you'll let them into the ballpark.
Yeah. I feel like that's a perfect setup for the band's visit, which was very much, I remember I saw it years ago. Yep. It was 2018, I believe. So I sat and was like, it is beautiful. We all are human. Does it hold up?
Well, I haven't seen it since then. I saw it twice, I think, in that run. One of them was a hot date, and I made out with this person from some app the whole time. So I really did enjoy it. It's a very sexy show.
Yeah, it was funny. I went with an Israeli friend once, and the whole time they were like, why do they have French accents? I thought Katrina
Lenck's Israeli accent was actually quite good, and certainly the Israeli lackadaisical, deadpan cynicism and the boredom, especially of kibbutz Israelis, having lived in a kibbutz myself, I found that plausible. But what I noticed even at the time, it was very well written. I mean, Itamar Moses is a really good book writer, really strong writer. Dave Yazbek wrote some really lovely music. But, you know, it's long been something I've noticed about the New York Times, that when they talk about Israelis and Palestinians, the interiority granted to each people is very different. Israelis have deep, rich psyches and inner lives, and we're always very interested in their struggles and their angst and the dilemmas, on the one hand, on the other hand, it's very Tevye. And it's almost fetishistic, the sort of depth granted to Israelis, and how we love David Grossman and Amos Oz and these Israeli writers who wrestle with the Israeli national conscience and the agony. And the Palestinians are just like the Vietnamese are in American culture, just kind of foils for that. They're just kind of inanimate objects in the diorama of Israeli, sandbox therapy or something like that. In the band's visit, which people want to take as a testament to the possibility of Israeli-Arab coexistence. Well, who are the Arabs in the show? They're Egyptians, wayward Egyptians who got lost on a bus trip. Now, Egypt is a country that Israel made peace with very cynically so that they could go bomb the shit out of the Palestinians and destroy the PLO leadership in Lebanon a few years later. That was the point of the Camp David Accords, so that they would eliminate the strongest Palestinian Arab ally in the regional power, Egypt, neutralize it. So you got these inoffensive Egyptian musicians in their nice powder blue uniforms with their instruments heading to a concert in what they think is Petah Tikva, which I guess has a strong Israeli Arab population. The word Palestinian I don't think is ever used. But they end up in Beit HaTikva, or maybe it's the other way around. I forget.
Beit HaTikva is the boring one they end up with, and it's just a pun on how there's no P in Arabic. Right,
which is also a Zionist talking point, it turns out, since October 7th. How can the Palestinians be Palestinians when they can't even say Palestinian? And I want to say to them, do you know that in Hebrew, Pei and Fei are the same letter? Yeah. And also try saying Jewish or Jerusalem in Hebrew. You can't say it. Why? Because it's spelled with a Yud. It's, Yerushalayim, Yehudi. You don't have a J sound in fucking Hebrew, you fucking moron liars. This is, this is who I've become thanks to Bad Hasbara and the genocide. Anyway, the point is, they end up in the wrong place, and they end up on a kibbutz with a bunch of Israeli Jews, and it's awkward. It's super awkward. Is that Gen Z for?
That's what they do, I believe. The kids on TikTok are like, "Oop, awkward." It's like,
and they also do that. They also do this, right?
Yeah. As a millennial, we used to be like awkward turtle, but now Gen Z is just like.
I'm trying to think if we had anything in the 80s for awkward. I don't think so. We were just awkward.
Or everyone was just so smooth it never came up.
No, they weren't smooth. Go watch The Breakfast Club. Go watch Say Anything. Yeah. Everyone was awkward, and we loved it. Kurt Cobain was super awkward, but he made it beautiful. Mm-hmm. So that's the basic story, and then there's kind of a love story, and so on and so forth. Mismatched cultures and all that. But the way to know, and I said that musical theater, it can be fascist. Well, it's always kind of, there's an ideology to it in a way. And you can know sort of where the writers are coming from by who gets songs. Like who gets to sing their feelings. And in Fiddler on the Roof, the Cossacks don't get to sing any feelings except during L'chaim, to life, when they join in with their own contrapuntal well wishes for the married couple.
And may we live together in peace.
Exactly, right? So it's this olive branch, ultimately a completely illusory one, but on the human level, the soldiers and the villagers would like to live in a world, may you have 1,000 reasons to rejoice. May you be favored with the future of your choice. It's beautiful. Hey. I mean, it's fantastic. Exactly. Singing in Russian. But we don't get the police officer who comes to inform Tevye that his village is going to be the victim of a demonstration, which is to say a pogrom, does not sing to Tevye about his feelings for that and his hope that, I don't know, maybe there was a cut song about that, but they'd make the choice that that's not whose interiority we're going to privilege. Well, in the band's visit, from what I remember, there might have been one Arab character, one Egyptian character, and in one moment who gets to sing about his interiority. The rest of the time...
And I think that's the sexy jazz song.
Of course it is. Because when it comes to, sexual Zionism was how they got me in my Zionist days, and the sexiness and the sort of that's how we're going to build these bridges.
Kulthum and Omar Sharif, like even the Israeli character sings about how sexy Omar Sharif is.
The scent of jasmine on the air, like total Orientalism, Orientalism from the only Western country in the Middle East, from the villa in the jungle, totally fetishizing Arabs. And meanwhile, the rest of the roles for the Arabs are to be kind of comical and musical geniuses who play their ouds and their whatever the drums are called, to play Arabic music. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's not minstrelsy exactly, but they're there to sort of just remind us of how cool and exotic their culture is, and how nice it would be if we could do cross-cultural exchange.
That's interesting.
But there's no mention of occupation, no mention of apartheid, no mention of the Nakba, no mention of anything. And we're left with, wow, those Israelis, they're really deep and interesting. And those Egyptians, wow, they're really rhythmic.
Yeah, they were there too. They don't know how to find the right bus.
Yeah.
It is, to bring it crassly down to the most important force in the world, the Tony Awards. It's very controversial, as you talk about the fact that Tony Shalhoub doesn't even have a whole song, and he won Best Actor in a Musical, and he doesn't even sing a song.
Tony doesn't even have a Tony.
He has a Tony, but not a song. So people say that Tony actually belongs to Ethan Slater for SpongeBob SquarePants. Like Tony, yeah, Ethan Slater's Tony is in Tony Shalhoub's house. But
yeah, you're right. I remember that. I mean, Tony Shalhoub is a fine actor.
And was totally wasted, but
totally wasted.
Got an award because they're like, thanks for coming to Broadway when you could have OCD on TV.
Yeah.
And to tie things together, when we talk about coexistence and coexistence propaganda, nationalistic propaganda, I feel like Hamilton plus the band's visit equals Come From Away, which is, of course, Canadian Hamilton.
Canadian.
About how nice and lovely Canadians are. What are your thoughts on that show?
I didn't mind Come From Away. I liked the heart of it. Mm-hmm. I liked what David and what's her name? Irene, yeah, I thought
I know
so.
too much. Yeah.
Sankoff. I liked what they were up to with it. I thought especially the book, which is not in the form of just, it's pretty much sung through, right?
Mm-hmm. With some Tim Hortons scenes here and there.
Yeah, good, yeah. Little Tim bits and pieces. I thought that was
for
better.
the uninitiated, it takes place, it's not a 9/11 musical, it's a 9/12 musical, as they say. So the premise of Come From Away, it's what happens when American airspace was closed and like a whole bunch of planes were grounded in Newfoundland and
Gander, Newfoundland. Yeah,
the town of Gander took care.
And the Newfies are adorably Newfie and very likable, and the interaction between them and the Americans to me rang true. By far, the least interesting song on the show is "Me and the Sky," which is because where them trying to write an American Broadway number, an 11 o'clock number. Jen Colella sang it. She sang it well, but to me, it's just garbage. It's about the thrill of being a female pilot. But where the show really shines is in these extended musical sequences, which, as we learned at NYU, are crucial, but very hard to write, where storytelling is moving along through not exactly songs, but like extended things that are sung, have some song form, but they're covering a span of time or a whole scene, and there's a lot of Newfoundland folk music woven into it, which is, that's not a style that lends itself particularly easily to musical theater storytelling. And I liked how they submitted to the local culture of it. And ultimately, I didn't find it all that jingoistic. It could have been much more obnoxious for a 9/11 musical. So I had been cringing a bit in advance of seeing it, but I liked it quite a bit.
It's the rare show is cringier in premise than execution.
Yes.
And there's even like an Oseh Shalom like a whole sequence about praying for peace, which I did find quite moving.
I found this book is cringier in premise than in execution.
I got my dad to read it. So,
yeah, well, it's perfect for your dad. Like that's who it's for.
It's for dads.
And we interviewed Peter on our podcast this week for listeners who aren't watching. Peter Beinart, Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza. It's a title that suggests a kind of this is all about us and our feelings and how are we going to continue.
It's not over. It's weird to have published that already.
Right. It should be called at least Being Jewish During the Destruction of Gaza. And I put that to Peter, and he was very receptive to that critique. But the book itself is very useful, I think, especially for people like your dad. It pulls no punches, maybe except in one or two spots where I would have quibbled. But the title made me cringe, but the book itself I found quite satisfying.
Yeah. And so that's honestly a perfect seg to listen to Daniel and Matt Leib's interview with Peter Beinart.
And if you want to become a Patreon member of Bad Hasbara at patreon.com/Bad Hasbara, you can listen to our interview with the illustrious Orli Matlow as well.
Thank you. Yes. And so where can people find you in addition to Patreon? Yeah,
so badhasbara.com is the sort of main website, and you can get links from there. I'm Daniel B. Maté, that's Mate, on Instagram and Twitter. DanielMatte.com for my musical theater stuff, which I'm excited is starting to pick up again after a couple of years of neglect. And what else? I co-wrote The Myth of Normal with my dad, Gabor Maté, which is available everywhere in a whole bunch of different languages, and including the audiobook, which I narrated. And I have a mental chiropractic service called Walk with Daniel, walkwithdaniel.com. I take walks with people and help them get unstuck from rigid mental patterns that are keeping them, frustrated or stymied in a particular corner of their lives. It's not therapy. I'm not a therapist, but it's sort of a vigorous brain wash on demand, brain power wash on demand.
That's so cool.
Yeah, done while walking, either in person or by phone. I really enjoy it, and it's a nice way to get out of my own head and create some possibility in a world that's so stingy with it.
And I want to hear about the project that won the Kleben Prize, because that is objectively huge. That's that's the award that I thought was going to change my life. Mm-hmm. And a year later, I was deathly depressed and leaving New York. But it was still nice to win. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a project. You just submit 8 songs from any number of shows. So I submitted 4 songs from my song cycle, I think, The Longing and the Short of It. Maybe 2 songs from The Trouble with Doug, which I co-wrote with Will Aronson, who's now the Tony Award-winning composer, lyricist of Maybe Happy Ending. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Which I recommend to everybody. And maybe a couple of songs from something else, I forget. But yeah, 8 songs, and they sort of select it based on the lyrics alone. It's a lyrics prize.
That's amazing. And so, yeah, we can hear you in spoken word plenty of places, but I'm excited to hear your songs and your lyrics.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, YouTube, my channel, I think, is Daniel Matte Music. There's some videos on there I'm very proud of, mainly proud of just the quality of the performers who have sung my stuff. Donna Lynn Champlin from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend has like a seminal rendition of my song, I Don't Think of You. George Salazar also did it. Kaneda Miller also did that song. Grace McLean. I'm Jason Sweet Tooth Williams, Eric William Morris, some of my favorite performers in New York I've gotten to work with. And that stuff is all up on YouTube. And then also I have a couple of defunct but still worth plumbing the archives YouTube channels about lyrics, just lyric appreciation. One is called Lyrics to Go, where I break down lyrics from Sondheim to Slayer to Metallica,
that's
to
great.
Wu-Tang Clan,
You
to
should-
Joni Mitchell, to everything.
You should bring it back for Lyrics to Go does Hot to Go.
H-O-T-T-O-T-Go, yeah. Geo. I like Chaperone, actually. I got to say, she's got chops. She's got songwriting chops.
Yeah, objectively interesting and new.
Yeah, objectively interesting and new and careful and impassioned and sincere and clever. And then another show, which was even more short-lived, but a lot of fun. It was called Let's Get Lyrical with Carice and Daniel. Carice being the Dutch actress Carice van Houten of Game of Thrones fame.
Oh, hell yeah.
Who played Melisandre, who is a very strong Palestine advocate. But this is several years ago. It was like 2021 or 2. And I think we have 11 episodes where we would talk about lyrics together. And that's on YouTube and on the podcast apps. Didn't live very long, but we had a lot of fun while we were doing it.
I'll link to everything in the show notes. And yeah, this was an exciting conversation that went everywhere. And knowing that musical theater could be fascist, I'm grateful that it could also be anti-fascist and that you're back working on it.
Damn right.
Another national anthem for the ones who can't get into the ballpark.
That's right. Where's my prize? That was me before I won the Kleban.
Exactly. The mailman won the lottery.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that Jew boy won the Kleban prize.
And the usherette's a rock star. Thank you for listening and or watching War is Stupid, an anti-war podcast about war. Please subscribe, rate and review. Tell your dads. We'll see you next time.